Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod. It's brought to you by SodaStick.com. I'm Brandon Mileski, Pat Micheletti with me. Hello, Pat.
Hello, Brandon.
We have plenty of Kevin Fiala discussion ahead of us in a little bit, but first, we are proud and pleased to be joined by the head coach of the University of St. Thomas men's hockey team, Rico Blasi. Rico, great to talk to you. How would you evaluate year one for your first year at Division I for St. Thomas?
Obviously, the win column was not where we wanted it to be. I think we discussed it a year ago that it was going to be a tough year in terms of that. But we needed to establish a process. We need to establish relationships, not only with our program but on campus, in the community. So there was a lot of things that our comprehensive plan. We needed to establish, and I think we did that. It was a very important year in our growth of our program, in terms of our identity and where we're going to be here in the near future.
How challenging is that when you're not winning, right? You had 3 wins last year. How challenging is it to grow the culture and the identity and kind of keep everyone on the right track when you're not getting the results coming along with it?
Well, it's tough. I give the guys a lot of credit. They came to the arena to work and to get better every day. 2 things I asked them to do at the beginning of the year was, one, to have a good attitude and come to the rink to get better, and then to just be a good person. And they certainly did those 2 things. Really proud of the way they handled the adversity. They battled hard every night. We just couldn't sustain it at times. There were a few games where we played very well for 60 minutes and maybe 62 minutes. But at the end of the day, we had no issues. We had really good student athletes that love St. Thomas, love what we're doing, love where we're going. I told them at the end of the year I couldn't be more proud of a group of young men than I was this year.
Yeah, for people who don't know what getting off track is being on track, sticking, forgetting about the wins and losses, but sticking to your core principles and not changing those. Is that kind of the thought process of staying on track?
Yeah, I think we've had a great experience watching the Colorado Avalanche win the Stanley Cup, right? Mm-hmm. It's well documented that they were in last place 5 years ago.
48 points.
Joe Sakic did an unbelievable job of sticking with the process, sticking with his guys, making sure there was continuity, making sure that the messaging was right, adding a few little pieces here and there. Obviously, you're drafting some pretty high talented players, but that's what I think a championship team and a championship culture needs, that stability, needs that continuity. Too many times organizations and companies like to kind of panic a little bit and change not only messaging, but employees, whatever it may be. My belief in building our culture here at St. Thomas is that the messaging has to be right. We have to be committed. We got to love what we do. We got to work hard.
Yep.
You gotta have that passion to try to get better every day. You got to have a family feel, team first mantra, and the process and the relationships are going to be at the forefront of what we're going to be here in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Knowing you as long as I have, you're competitive. You want to win. When do you think, and this is hard, it's hard to answer probably. When do you think you get to that point where, you know what, guys, we got to start winning some games here?
Well, I think it's pretty well documented. You saw that me against Mankato in the playoffs, right? So,
right.
listen, we go into every game thinking we're going to win, right?
Of course,
I mean, if you're not thinking that way, then you shouldn't be
in the game,
in the business, right? So,
Yep.
We're going to go into every week preparing like we're going to win that weekend. I think for us, it's going to start to happen this year. We're about 90 days away from playing St. Cloud, and we expect to be very competitive. That's how we recruited. That's the messaging. That's the vision of our program. We're not looking for any handouts or anything like that. We're going to do it the right way. We're not going to have any, we're not going to go, tiptoe around adversity or anything like that. We're going to go right through it. And going right through it means you got to battle hard every night. And, we expect to do that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have 11 incoming recruits, 2 transfers, if that is correct. What excites you about the new players you have coming in?
Well, 12 freshmen and 5 transfers, actually.
Oh, 5 transfers. Okay.
11 returners. Part of that was we had some seniors and some grad students last year that graduated. And we had some tough discussions with probably about 4 or 5 guys that, in their best interest, decided to move on. And I think it was the right decision. Hard conversations, but that allowed us to really kind of build a foundation for us and how we want to play. I'm really excited about our 12 freshmen. We call them the believers. They're coming here for a reason. They're coming here because they value a high-end education here at St. Thomas. They value what we're trying to do as a program. I believe we're in the student-athlete development business. So it's our job to make sure that they become not only better hockey players, but better human beings.
This, you live here now, you're part of the community. The high school hockey scene, what is that? What are your thoughts on that? Just going to games, seeing it all, seeing the number of players. What are your quick thoughts on the Minnesota high school hockey and the talent pool here?
Well, I love it. The energy, the compete, the love. There were times at the end where I became a fan, and so for us to have that ability to go out every week and watch these guys grow throughout the season and then continue to track them and hopefully become Tommies at some point is very exciting. And, I loved my time in the rink. I think I got some weird looks here and there, but for the most part, everybody's been absolutely supportive and great. And I think everybody knows what St. Thomas can be, and we're really excited about that.
I probably asked you this question a year ago when we had you on, but I'll ask you again now that you've actually recruited some of these Minnesota kids. What's kind of your recruiting strategy from a geography standpoint? Because it does seem like the majority of your incoming freshmen are from Minnesota. You got a couple transfers coming back here to St. Thomas that are from Minnesota. Is it fair to say moving forward that you are going to key in on this area and then kind of get the rest of the roster elsewhere?
I think that's always a really important piece. You have to be good in your backyard, and we're really excited about the guys that we've recruited from around our area. But yes, we want to make sure that we're really good here in Minnesota. We have over 210 players playing Division I hockey from our state. We're the state of hockey for a reason.
Right.
We just want to recruit the right ones.
Yeah.
The ones that want to be here and the ones that want to play the way we want to play and get not only a great hockey experience, but a prestigious degree.
All right. Need an arena update. Come on.
We are. I've been dodging you for a year.
You have. Yeah. Right. I've been waiting for that call. Yeah.
But listen, you are the best gopher that I know. Next to Corey Leyland.
Yeah. True.
So we are in a very good spot right now. As you know, timing is everything.
Yep.
And the time is coming real soon. And I think everyone's going to be really excited about not only what they see, but where it's going to be. And I'll just leave it at that.
Well,
so one more. So this coming year in the same building, but next year, then we'll be watching the Tommies in a new building.
I'm hoping
you're telling me.
I'm hoping when we do a podcast here in the fall, you and I can talk about the arena.
Okay, great. I'll leave you alone. I'll leave you alone.
I'll just give you a little wink on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to recruiting, Rico. What types of players? What are the characteristics you're looking for in the Tommy when you're out there trying to find players?
Yeah, I think we're probably no different than anybody else, right? You want high compete level, high skill, be able to skate, coachable. We want our identity to be someone that or a team that's hard to play against every night and can play any style that game brings on. And so, again, we're not any different than anybody else. We just got to make sure that they believe in what we're doing as well, and that the connection is right, the relationship is right. And once you build that relationship and check off all the boxes in terms of the skill and the compete and all that other stuff, then you have a good match, and it's good for the student athlete and it's good for the program. And that's when, these young guys really take off and succeed in their careers.
Rico, I tell people all the time, when they see a hotshot kid coming in and, oh, wow, this kid's going to be a superstar and blah, blah, blah. I don't care how good you are or whatever the case may be. Every step, every next level, it takes time, and it's an adjustment. When you get a new kid in, I know every player is different, but what are some of the keys where you say, yep, it's coming, he's getting there, in terms of that kid's development and he's ready to play at that level?
Well, there's a lot that's in that question, right?
Yeah.
It's part of teaching and developing players, and
Yeah.
in my opinion, it starts with that relationship and the recruiting process and making that connection, and then loving that person and that player. And once you have that relationship and you're in it together, then you can start to communicate their role. You can start to communicate how that process is going to go. Are you going to agree all the time? Probably not. But the communication has to be first and foremost. And that, for me, has always been kind of the thing that we've done. And so once you can establish that, once you can establish how that path is going to go, the role that he's going to play on your team, then that individual has an opportunity to get better every day because he has an understanding of what he needs to do. And we have a very, I think it's a simple but pretty comprehensive plan that we have for every player. It's something that's communicated quite often, not only by me, but my staff, and they feel comfortable in that. They can adjust it from time to time. So the path is one way, but it takes different, turns along the way, and
yeah,
you got to bring them back to the fold. And so, yeah, it's a process. There's been lots of players that you've seen me coach and have played for us that as freshmen and sophomores, you would have thought there's no chance. And then all of a sudden, as a junior, they become an All-American.
Yeah.
As a senior, they become an All-American and probably one of your best leaders that you've ever had. So it's hard in today's game because of the transfer portal and all those things. It's hard to, hold these young men accountable, but I think that's really what they need.
Yeah.
If you want to succeed, it's not about going to somewhere that you think is going to be better, because it might not be as rosy as you think.
Right.
And, again, it's, to me, it goes back to that relationship. You have to have that connection, that love for making sure that they're getting better every day, and that they know you're gonna be there with them every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I love the drive in the kids and the want to get better and get right in, and but to me, and you make a great point on the communication, is that you don't have to go 100 miles an hour to get to where you want to get to, right? Um, you gotta go through all of the steps to improve yourself, mature, all of those, all of the attributes to get you to that level.
And everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
And I think with social media and the way our society is right now, you're always looking to your left and to your right, and you want to be, some players are going to have that fast track.
Mm-hmm.
Some players are not, and some players are in the middle. Most of us are in the middle. And
Yeah.
To me, it's important that you focus on the individual, and that they understand what their path is. Um, and you communicate that not only with him, but probably with everybody in his camp now, because the camps are getting bigger and bigger every day.
Yeah.
And so if everybody's on the same page, there's less chance of it not working. Now, this everybody's ceiling is different, and some will play in the NHL, some will play in the East Coast League, some will get a job and make uh, a living doing something else, and that's okay.
Okay. I don't want to get you in trouble here, but you bring up camps. When you and I were playing, our camps were our parents. That has completely changed. Um, and how difficult is it now when there's more people involved outside of your family, when it comes to all these choices? I'm trying to say that in a way not to get you in trouble.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that other than to say that the way we recruit is to be open and honest. And the one thing I always tell our student athletes that we recruit, if you have a question of what we're doing because somebody's telling you that something's happening that's not happening, ask us.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just assume that because somebody is telling you something that's the truth. And so we try to communicate and be right on message and be open and right to the point. Because I think if you kind of skirt around it, then that's when you get in trouble. But it is difficult. It's they've got their skating coach now, and they work out with different groups, and obviously family advisors come into play, and the parents. When we played, I'm a first generation Italian. You know what my dad said? Don't embarrass the family. See you later.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
You better work hard. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I won't tell you what he used to tell my teachers and my coaches, because I think it wouldn't be legal today. But
Right.
but it is difficult, and it does muddy the waters for some of these kids. And unfortunately, it's where we're at. And some of them are really good, and there's a lot that are just kind of doing it for the wrong reasons, and that's those are the ones you have to try to figure out.
You mentioned the transfer portal earlier. You coached at Miami of Ohio for a long time without a transfer portal. How much has changed with how you have to coach and your responsibilities year round now that you have to deal with the transfer portal?
Well, I think your staff is always on top of what's going on around the country, and making sure that you're in tune with who's playing, who's not playing, and what the scuttlebutt is around the country, and listening to different conversations along the way. At the end of the day, it's just no different than the NHL. You're recruiting, you're drafting your players that you want and that you believe in and that believe in you, and that's how you're going to build your program. You can add one or two transfers along the way that can enhance what you're trying to do for that year. But at the end of the day, you got to build within.
Yeah.
All right.
Quick thoughts on Augustana joining the CCHA?
Yeah, I think it's great. Everything that we've seen from coach's standpoint in our conference has been top notch, first class. They hired a great young coach in Rabs, and I think it's going to be good for our conference and great for college hockey.
Final question, Rico. CCHA next year. I'm going to assume that Mankato is going to be in the mix, but what are you projecting for what teams are going to be at the top next year?
Well, I think first of all, it's a very competitive league, and you're going to have to battle every single weekend for points. And I think Mankato. I'm not going to put anybody else on the spot, but I really like what Bowling Green's done. Bemidji, obviously. Tech had a great year. Lake State's always right there. Northern's going to be really good with some of the additions that they added. And Ferris is going to be a lot better as well. So I think every team in our conference is well coached. They've got some dynamic players, and it should be a fun year.
That was a very political answer there, Rico.
I've been watching a little news lately, so picking up some tips.
Rico, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later. And if we don't talk to you before next season, good luck.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Yep. Take care.
All right, Rico Blasi, head coach of the University of St. Thomas men's hockey team. Before we talk a little Kevin Fiala, Pat, I want to talk about sodastick.com. They sponsor Beyond the Pod. Go to sodastick.com to get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. If you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to check it out. All of their apparel screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You will love it. We're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. So use the code KFAN for 15% off. That is sodastick.com, original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off your next order. Pat, the news came down yesterday. Kevin Fiala traded to the LA Kings. The Wild in return get their first round selection in this upcoming draft at number 19. And a defenseman we're very familiar with from the University of Minnesota, Brock Faber. A lot of times, Pat, you'll see these trades like this and you're getting in prospects from another team and you probably don't really have a full gauge of what that player is capable of. But obviously you have seen Brock Faber many times. You know exactly what the Wild are getting in Brock Faber.
I do. And first of all, I thought he was I thought for sure at the end of last season he was going to sign with LA and jump right in the playoffs with them. Here's the deal about Brock Faber. They didn't win the national championship. If they would have won the national championship, things may have changed. Immediately after, he said, I'm coming back because I want to win a national championship. Now, so he put everything aside and said, I want to come back and I want to win a national championship. What does that tell you? Character right there. And in talking to Mike Hastings and talking to Brett Larson, who were his coaches at the Olympics, they both told me we couldn't take him off the ice. He led all of their defensemen in minutes played in the Olympics. You look at his numbers, and I think he's got 56 points, 57 points in his 2 years at Minnesota. Okay numbers, but he didn't have to be that guy to be when you have a Jackson Lacombe, a Johnson, a Kester. He didn't have to be that guy to, be a big point producer on the back end. That part of his game will eventually evolve. What he is he will eat minutes till you're blue in the face. And is he NHL ready? Could he go to camp and make the Minnesota Wild? 100% he could. So in my opinion, and I think they got the equivalent of a number one draft pick, along with getting a number one draft pick.
Yeah,
that's my assessment of it. And he, he's going to go back. He's going to try to win a national championship with Minnesota. He's a captain next year. There's a reason why he's a captain, and they're going to sign him at the end of the season. So I think it was a really, really solid move. We'll see what they do with that pick. With the number 1 pick, because they get the 18th pick now. So they got 18 and 24.
19 and 24. Yeah.
Or no, I'm sorry, 19 and 24. And so they'll have options there. And so I think it was a good move, and it freed up money, Brandon. It freed up money to maybe acquire another player.
I was gonna say, I don't know if it freed up money. It just got them under the cap so that they could be cap compliant. But
true.
You are right on Brock Faber. I actually played with him at the Hendrickson Foundation Celebrity Charity, and 1, he was my defensive partner the entire game. 2, I sat right next to him in the locker room. So I asked him that very question, because 2 successful years at the University of Minnesota, he could easily jump into the National Hockey League. He happened not to, and I asked him straight up. I said, "Was that a tough decision for you?" He goes, "I wanted to win a national championship. I wanted to come back and win it." It's the exact words he said. So, and I think what you brought up, Pat, is, we kind of live now in an internet world where people get caught up in analytics and stats, and some of that is important. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I think you can get a good. I'm not anti-analytics here.
No,
but there's always more to the puzzle than just straight up how your Corsi is, right? And you mentioned it. Like, if he wants to come back to win a national championship, that's a kid who has character. That's a kid who's a leader. That's a kid who wants to win, which is that's extremely important. And they've got a great freshman class coming in the University of Minnesota. You're gonna have a kid who might be drafted in the top 3, and Logan Cooley in the NHL draft coming in. He has skill, as you mentioned. He's decent sized. He can skate. He
like the wind.
He's a great athlete. He doesn't get tired. Defensively, he's really he's NHL ready defensively right now. There's probably a little bit of room for growth offensively, but to me, he's almost like a sure thing. He's going to be a top 4 defenseman for a team. Whether he gets into a top pairing eventually, that's to be determined. But to me, you have almost like a sure thing NHL top 4 defenseman on your hands, and then we'll see what happens with pick 19.
Yeah, and I'm glad we had Coach Rossi on, or Blasi. I'm sorry, I'm thinking Marco Rossi. Blasi, Coach Blasi. Sorry. And I asked him the question of, the path, the process, the trying to get from point A to point Z in a millisecond. And then you look at Brock Faber, right? And he knows he could sign today if he wanted to, but he understands, and that's the maturity of a kid, where he understands he doesn't have to get there right now. He can still improve and still get better and still dream of winning or going after a national championship. I mean, most guys would say, I'm going to get there today, but he gets it, and those guys are really, really hard to find. And if you don't have the sense, the maturity, the willingness to go back and get better and all of that stuff, you're just not going to make it. I think it was a brilliant move.
Well, let's talk about the particulars of the trade. Obviously, we talked Brock Faber. There are some that say, why did Bill make a move so early on? Why didn't he try to leverage teams against each other? And I think in your average trade, that makes sense, Pat. This year, I just think there are so many options available at the forward position. I mean, Johnny Gaudreau is going to be available. Johnny Gaudreau is better than Kevin Fiala. Maybe Bergeron and Pasternak and Malkin, and there's a list of others I'm forgetting right now. Like, there are going to be high-end forwards available, whether by a free agency or trade. DeBrincat for Chicago. Yep. So to me, I thought it made sense for the Wild. Hey, once you have a deal you like, and it might not have been the best possible deal in the whole entire world. You might have not squeezed every piece of juice out of that lemon.
Right.
But it's a fair deal, and I do think the longer you would have waited on Fiala, it was more likely that you were going to get less for him than what you got at the time. And they had to get rid of him. They didn't have a lot of leverage here, Pat.
No.
So to me, to get a first rounder, and as you mentioned, a guy in Faber who is worthy of a first round pick, and get yourself cap compliant. I thought it was, and frankly, I think it's a good deal for the LA Kings too. I think both sides won here.
We all want to win today, right? We all want a cup today, and yeah, you can say, "Oh, Baba, we've been waiting. It's been 20 some odd years. This organization hasn't gotten past this, past that." You have to have a short memory, forget, and just look where Colorado was, and look what they did to get where they are. 5 years ago, 48 points in an 82 game season is atrocious. It's absolutely atrocious. And they stuck to the plan. And I think, getting a guy like Faber, they have 4 or 5 other young defensemen, whether they end up playing here or whether they get dealt, that's another, conversation. But, you've got to get the young players, you got to develop them. And you have to let them grow. I think what they did with Marco Rossi this past year, and we don't know where he's at yet, if he's going to make the team or not, but he had a good year. And so, you have to do, you're not, as a fan, you're not really thrilled about it. But if you just let it grow, it's going to come. Nothing. Hey, the Stanley Cup, Brandon, you and I have talked a million times. It is so hard to win. It is so hard to win. But I think if you take the proper steps, you're giving yourself a chance.
Well, and I get fans concern with it, right, Pat? Because odds are the Wild gave up the best player in this trade, right? I mean, the odds of Brock Faber reaching Kevin Fiala levels or impact.
Right.
Not saying he can't. If he becomes a top pairing defenseman, then you've right. The number 19 pick in the draft, that's a crapshoot. You have no idea. And we won't know until they make that selection. So, odds are that the LA Kings could have the best player in this draft or best player in this trade. But one, like I said earlier, Pat, the Wild didn't have a lot of leverage. They were forced to do something, and they could really only take futures in return.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really have the option of getting players that could help you immediately on a roster. And the other side of this, though, Pat, is while the Wild might not get the best player in this trade, you could still have the best part of this trade in terms of 2 guys that are going to be on entry-level contracts.
Right.
From a salary standpoint, for what they're contributing to the team with how much money they're making, could end up being better than, the nearly $8 million Fiala is going to be making with the LA Kings for the next 8 years.
Right. And I and I look at Guerin, and I obviously this is deal number 1. There may be more deals that we might see coming up, because I think he knows the areas that they need to get better at and improve upon, and I think he'll somehow try to address them, knowing what he has to deal with. Can he address them? Well, we'll see. Like I said, he's got these 2 first-round picks. I don't know what they're going to do with them. Probably keep them, but that's the fun part of the summer that we're going through right now.
Yeah, they got the 2 first-round picks. They also have, as you mentioned, a wealth of defensive prospects now. You would imagine maybe you flip one at some point for a forward that can help you immediately, or maybe just a forward prospect to help out the depth in your system. A couple other Wild notes, Pat. You concerned yet that Marc-Andre Fleury has not signed with the Wild yet? I saw, kind of a note from Dan Rosen from NHL.com that the Devils and Colorado Avalanche may be interested. I don't know why Fleury would pick the Devils over Minnesota, but I could definitely see why he would pick Colorado.
Yeah, and I also saw the Toronto Maple Leafs have shown interest. I listen. It behooves him to look around. He's a free agent. You've earned the right to become a free agent, and you've earned the right to talk to other teams. According to people, he really likes it here, and he likes the atmosphere and the players and what they're doing. It ultimately, if it gets to the $4 million range or $5 million range, then Minnesota will have to make a decision. do we want to keep Cam Talbot? Because I don't think they can go much over $3 to $4 million. I really don't.
Yeah.
Does he, is some team, he'll be 38 years old. Is some team going to be willing to pay him, the 5, 6, 7 million that he's been making? I don't know. I don't see it, but he's got to test the market. I hope he comes back, give Wallstead another year a year in the minors to get his footing here. And, so I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that we're approaching July here and he has not re-signed with the Wild. I kind of thought that was going to be a given from what I'd heard late in the season, that he was going to be willing to accept a pretty team friendly deal to stay here. Obviously, he has a relationship with Bill Guerin. If it was any other team but Colorado, I would be pretty confident he was coming back, and I still think there's a good chance he's going to come back to Minnesota. But I would have to think for him, Colorado is appealing, because if you're willing to accept less money just because you've made so much in your career, well, then that to me means it's all about winning. And is there a better chance to win than to be the goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche next year? I don't see that there is.
No, I think you're right. Colorado's on a very, very, very tight budget cap wise next year. They're gonna lose some pretty key players. And Nishushkin and Kadri's going to get paid. There's a couple other guys that they're going to have to re-sign. But that being said,
McKinnon's due a raise too.
McKinnon's due a raise.
He's going to get paid this summer,
right? And so they've got some work to do there. That being said, they still have their core back, and they'll be awfully good, and it'd be very enticing for a guy like Fleury to go there. But I don't know what's the number that I'm thinking $3 million, but I don't know, what the number would be in terms of keeping him.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is probably going to be in that range. And to your point, if you go up much higher than that, now you got to start considering, well, do we want to keep two goalies that are making the money in that range? One final Wild topic. This is a little bit of an old story, but I don't think I've talked to you since it happened. Connor Dewar signed a 2-year, one-way contract for both years. I wish he would have gotten a little bit more of a look in the playoffs, Pat. But there are going to be some limitations to his game just based off his size. But I love his speed, which fits in today's National Hockey League. And I also like that even though he is that size, he can kill penalties for you. He can be a two-way forward. He can play defensively. I don't think he shies away from contact for a guy his size. I'm a fan of Connor Dewar.
I think we've had this conversation because I saw him a lot in Iowa.
Yeah,
and he was their best player, and he was in a role that you would compare to a top 6 role in the NHL, and he controlled that role, and he exceeded at that role. When he moved up here, obviously he was not going to be in that position. And he did the things a third, fourth liner had to do. I think because he's getting more acclimated to the NHL, and once he is given that the role of playing a little bit more power play, of playing a little bit more penalty kill, of feeling of belonging, you're going to see a pretty darn good player. He has more in the tank than what we've seen, and we haven't seen it because that opportunity hasn't been there for him yet, and getting that NHL readiness to his game. So I think, geez, for 1.2, and you've got the speed, and he can win faceoffs, and he can kill penalties. I think it's a really good move.
All right, Pat, it's time to do stick taps, which you do at the end of every Beyond the Pod. I will begin. I'll go first.
Okay.
My stick tap today goes to Minnesota hockey. I saw the numbers yesterday. They passed 19,000
Wow.
8U players this season. That is the first time ever. That number exactly was 19,079. It includes 5,448 girls and 13,631 boys, a 12.2% increase from 8U numbers last season. I have 2 kids that were in that mix, so I feel like we contributed to the amount of numbers in Minnesota hockey. So great job that they keep growing the game and keep getting more and more kids at the younger levels to play.
Well, they set the Minnesota model is the gold standard, and it has been. It always will be. We should never get away from it. And the leadership they have and all of the volunteers, I'm with you there. My stick tap, Brandon, a little different today. Okay. I'm going with the family here. I'm going to give a stick tap out to my son, Alex.
Wow.
And I'm doing this because, you've known him since he was probably 5 years old, whatever, somewhere in that range, right? We've been doing this
Has it been that long?
a long time. I know, right? Maybe a little older.
Yeah,
but
I don't think he was that young when I met him.
But he comes to pretty much every fan line. He studies the game. He comes with me to all of my games that I broadcast, whether radio or TV. He soaks in all the information, and now he's taken that and he's developing his own. And you see him quite a bit on social media. He's on a bunch of different podcasts, and it's just, he loves the game. He's got the passion for the game. And it's just great to see his growth, and I'm awfully proud of him.
He has the Micheletti passion for hockey.
Yes.
He needs to be nicer to Darcy Kemper, though.
He does.
He's being really mean to Darcy.
The one thing I keep telling him every game, I'm like, are you going to learn? Are you going to listen? I said, not every goal is a bad goal. And that's with any goal. I said, I'm sitting here watching the games with you, and a goal scored, and I look at him, and he'll say, yep, another bad goal. I'm like, okay, so you could have stopped that Stamkos top shelf over the glove,
Yeah.
But
and good goalies are
ways to go. So maybe I should take that stick tap away. He's still learning.
And good goalies will make mistakes too.
Right.
I'm not saying Darcy Kemper's the best goalie in the world.
Correct.
But he was good enough for Colorado to win it. All right. Thank you, Patrick.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. Yep. Take care.
All right. He's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod. As always, it's brought to you by sodastick.com. Thank you to Rico Blasi of St. Thomas for joining us. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod. Bye.